Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome someone who's authored 42 picture books, as well as the memoir, Nourishing the Soul. Please help me welcome Bracha Goetz. Bracha, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Well, we have a lot to cover, but I want to start with you and your background. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rego Park, New York, which is Queens. I went to Forest Hills High School.
Fellow New Yorker, good.
I went there after Simon and Garfunkel.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were in an Orthodox family growing up or no?
No. Mm-mm.
So what kind of upbringing did you have?
We belonged to the conservative synagogue across the street from us. And let's see, I went to USY. I went to Israel on like a pilgrimage. They call it a pilgrimage when I was like 16. They had like a teen tour to Israel for the summer. And let's see, what else? I don't know. I think I was involved with Young Judea but it's the funny thing is, and I went to a Jewish camp that was Reconstructionist, and I really loved it because they did like Shabbos at the camp. And I thought that was like the most amazing thing.
So you had nothing in your family at all?
No, my mother lit candles on Friday night. And another thing that she did was that she didn't sew on Saturday. I have no idea why. There were certain things that she did that she kept from her family.
Really? So what was life like in the area? I mean, for Jews in the area, was it a Jewish area?
I think it was, but I was so unaware at that time. I wasn't aware who was Jewish, who wasn't Jewish. It wasn't like a consciousness in my head. I think it was a Jewish neighborhood, but many of my friends weren't Jewish, I'm sure. And yeah.
So you didn't see anything like anti-Semitism really around your area?
Growing up, I did not experience it until I actually went to Cornell for the summer. I was at a summer program when I was still in high school, and there was actually some kind of evangelical person who was chasing after me and screaming that I was going to go to hell and everything because I was Jewish and stuff. Yeah, but I can't remember too many other incidences like that. Yeah.
Well, you're Orthodox now, correct? So I mean, what led to that change?
Oh boy, yeah.
Decision.
Oh boy, it's really, that's what my memoir. I'll hold this up.
I'm going to bring that up also, but later.
Yeah. Nourish the soul. Okay. Filling the emptiness within is. It's a compilation of my diaries and journals and letters. It's that whole transformation process. Like what brought me to becoming Orthodox? It's also the development of like food addictions over the years and how did I heal from it? And it's all connected because that's the search that I was on. What did one thing have to do with the other? Why was I able to heal when I finally nourished my hungry soul? That's what it's about. So basically, I was searching from the book begins at age 12 when I started my diary. I started my diary right after I finished reading the diary of Anne Frank. So it inspired me to start my own diary. And at age 12, I was completely changing into adolescence. It was as if I had an expansion of consciousness at that age. It was like a very different time. I can still bring back those feelings. And at that point, I began searching, like the world opened up, like what's the purpose of life? From Anne Frank, I began wondering about these things and just wondering, why Jewish? What's special about being Jewish? But I didn't really find the answers. So I went searching into other religions, Christian Science. My boyfriend was Christian Scientist. I went to church with him. I got really involved in that. And I was fascinated by it because it was about like that God could do anything. I got into all these spiritual concepts, which I didn't know about in Judaism. And then I got into Buddhism. I was searching in all these religions and in social action groups, very much involved with environmentalism and all kinds of protests. And it was a very exciting time, you know, in life, because I write about it in the book. Going through the 60s and 70s was like a super exciting change as I was going through these changes and changes in the world. So basically, I started at a certain point in high school. Again, in my search for wisdom, I started doing well in school and studying everything. And suddenly my grades picked up and I started wanting to learn about everything. So then I did so well. Like I got into Harvard and these other schools and everything. So
So what made you finally embrace the Judaism again?
Oh yeah, right. I forgot the original question. So at Harvard, and then when I went on to medical school, I seemed successful, but it was like the illusion ended. I got to the top and there was nothing there. Like I met all these famous people and I realized they were also searching for something more. Like fame and power and wealth. I got to see all that and there was nothing on the top of the mountain, nothing that was fulfilling. So at that point, like, even though I looked successful on the outside, I was searching more deeply within, and the addictions were getting worse and worse. So I'm studying all these fields like women's studies and eating disorders with women, and I'm getting sicker and sicker, and I'm becoming like an expert on it at Harvard, doing like groundbreaking research, which is still being studied now. And meanwhile, my behaviors are getting more and more bizarre, and they're all done in secret. Because when you have an addiction,
you're talking about the food addiction.
Yeah, nobody knows that you're suffering, and it takes over your life. So the point is that when I got to Harvard, and like I was only dating non-Jews, and in college, my boyfriend was a Jesuit Catholic, and in medical school, I was dating a Southern Baptist. And by then my parents were really freaked out. Like my mother was like, why can't you date someone Jewish? You know, so go to Israel for the summer and do whatever you want, but just don't meet up with this one guy I knew from childhood who became a religious fanatic. So of course I contacted him with an aerogram, you know, I said, you know, I want to be a psychiatrist, but I don't understand the meaning to life. I want to be able to help my patients. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about your patients. I'll take you to some places where you could learn about the purpose of life, you know? So that's what happened. He met up with me. I got a volunteer position at Hadassah Hospital on the oncology ward. And he met me in the cafeteria at Hadassah, and he took me to classes at Neve Yerushalayim, and Or Sameach had like a small women's division. And I got there and it was like, yes, this is what I wanted my whole life. Like immediately it was like the missing puzzle piece. Like there were elements of the other religions that I loved.
So you saw someone like practice, and you met people who were Orthodox, and that inspired you kind of?
This guy who I knew from elementary school way back, and he was really upset also about me dating non-Jews. When he'd come back to America, he'd like talk to me about it. Do you want your children baptized and stuff? I still remember the things he said to me. And like, so he met me, and he was going to Esha Torah, and he brought me to these schools, and I went to the classes and I loved them immediately. Even though some things were in Hebrew and I didn't really understand everything, I loved the people, I loved the teachers, and within a week, I moved out of Hadassah and into the dorms at Orsamer.
Well, your memoir changed. The title changed, right? It used to be called something else.
Yes.
Why did you make the change? It was like what?
Oh,
Searching for God in the garbage? Is that what?
yes. Some people were put off by that title. I wanted it to be shocking, you know, searching for God in the garbage, because that's really what I ended up doing. Um, but, but I, the more I talked about the book, giving presentations about it,
Mhm.
the more I kept speaking about this is all about nourishing the soul. And I realized, I think the title should reflect the essence of the book. And that's really what it is. So,
It's a better
um,
title. Yes.
thank you. So what happened is we also got the book back from the publisher. What happened is when my 40th children's book was published, my children decided, oh, the publishers make all the money on your books. Why don't we become the publisher? So they became the publisher, beginning with the 40th book. And so they've been republishing some of my books, like my memoir too. Yeah.
Well, going back, so when did you first start showing an interest in writing? Was it from the Anne Frank diary? Is that what inspired you to first start writing?
But that's what inspired me to write my diary.
Oh,
But I was writing from much earlier. Like I remember in third grade, they read my poem at the parents' assembly, like they had a big assembly. And the poem was about books and how books, when you read a book, you could travel any place in the world. A book can take you any place. So yeah, I love to rhyme. So a lot of my stuff is in rhyme. And I was rhyming from I'm definitely from third grade on. I love to read, and I love to read children's books. It's still my favorite book. So yeah, I was writing from very early on.
so right away you started showing interest in picture books. That was the first thing that you did?
I love picture books. They're still my favorite books. I'm a very slow reader because if I read a big book, my mind goes off on many ideas and it takes me a long time to finish it. Like at Harvard, I didn't really read all the books. I'd read the beginning and the end and a little bit in the middle because it takes me way too long. I like short books, like poetry too. Get to the essence, get to the core, and express the main idea. That's what I love to do.
What was your first picture book?
My my first book that I wrote was the Itchy Shabbos, and my children were like, I had like a few little children, and I was sitting outside on the yishuv, on the settlement where I lived, and I had like a few minutes, so I brought a notebook with me because they were all playing nicely to write down the idea that was in my head for a while. And so I wrote it up, and on loose leaf paper, I sent it to America, put it in an envelope. And like 6 weeks later, I got back a message that the book was accepted. So I felt, this is it. I know how to write children's books. Yeah.
So I was looking at your site. It's Growing Impact Publications. That's the imprint? That's yours now? That's a new imprint that you did?
That is, my children created this website, my youngest children. Yeah.
So they started it just because they didn't want you to, they wanted to, I guess, control all your books and
they wanted to make a business out of it instead of the publishers. Like, okay, my son is a first grade Rebbe, and my daughter-in-law was a preschool teacher. She quit her job, and this is what she's doing now, working on all the books, publishing them, publicizing, making animations, making audiobooks. They're very much into spreading it, and that's what they do.
So basically, I mean, so the house, the imprint kind of just exists for your books alone right now. Are you looking to go into other people's as well?
They are planning to do that. Right, exactly. They're still learning the ropes and doing this. They've been doing this for about 2 years now. And now they are looking to expand and publish other people's things as well. That's why they changed the title. The name of the publishing company was the Goetz Bookshop Publishing House.
Right.
And now they have expanded. Right now, they just changed it like a month ago to Growing Impact Publications, right?
So as an Orthodox Jewish woman, what kind of impact does that have on your writing?
Oh, it's everything. That's my whole purpose now, is to spread what I have learned, and to children as young as possible, so they can begin to look at the world through eyes that are joyful, and through developing gratitude skills from the beginning of life, because that to me is the essence of Judaism.
So it's basically that message kind of goes through all your books. There are certain topics that you won't touch base, really.
What do you mean? There's certain topics.
Like you wouldn't, I mean, you try to keep everything like through a religious message in a little bit.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, I wrote the books that really were the groundbreaking books about abuse, Let's Stay Safe and talking about personal privacy. These were really important books. What all the books have in common is that they all help children's souls to shine. Abuse is something that puts a covering over the soul so it can't shine as fully. The same thing with eating healthy, with exercising, all of these things. See, my background was in medicine. Like, I was taking courses at Harvard's Graduate School of Public Health and Harvard Medical School, even as an undergraduate. I love public health. So I love to combine those things and help people for their souls to shine fully. Also, we need healthy bodies. So some of my books are about swimming safely, saving people's lives. Let's Stay Healthy, about exercise and how to stay healthy with eating healthy. Also, Hashem's Candy Store is about that. And Let's Appreciate Everyone is about teaching about disabilities, how to be more inclusive. And then I have some books which right now are for any general audience, like Where Is God? And I Want to Be Famous. These are books for anybody. And now we're also creating some more books with universal themes as well, which are appropriate for Jewish people, non-Jewish, anybody. The whole idea is to spread gratitude all over the world and to shine this Jewish light, which is all about, we're the gratitude people, and that's what we we have this to share with everybody.
I was going to ask you about your books. You mentioned abuse, and you do tackle some really tough subjects in a lot of your books that I was looking. And so how difficult is that for you to do, for kids, to tackle that subject for kids?
So, like, I worked for 20 years running a Big Brother, Big Sister program.
I was going to ask about that as well. Yes.
Yeah, I know how important this is. Thank God, things have changed so much since Let's Stay Safe was published, because it's not such a stigma anymore. It was so hard to get that book published. I wrote it in 2007, and it was finally published in 2011 through the help of Rabbi Yaakov Horowitz, because I was getting rejections from every publishing company, and he pushed it through, thank God, and ArtScroll published it. Without his help, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm really grateful. And years later, in 2014, the book, it was first had a different title, but now it's called Let's Talk About Personal Privacy. That book is solely on the subject of prevention of sexual abuse of children. While in Let's Stay Safe, I just put it in the middle as another normative safety measure with many other safety guidelines for children, because that was the only way to present it at that time. There was no way we could just put out a book on that and people were going to buy it. But within the time of 2011 and 2014, already things had changed, and Feldheim and Project Innocent Heart together helped to put out the book, the Personal Privacy book, which is actually the first book that I wrote. And then I wrote the book where it was stuck in the middle. I revised to write that one, and that one came out first. Yeah.
And you also talk a lot about spirituality in your books. That's very important to you as well to put in.
Yeah, it's all about that, because this is how I describe it. We are like, we have this soul that's always shining.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, even when we're not aware of it, like things happen to us, and like we go through trauma, we go through abuse, whatever we go through in life, even the trauma, the only big trauma I had in my life was that I didn't know I was a soul. I didn't know I needed that kind of nourishment. I just felt this emptiness that could never be filled. And in order to, that shining light never goes away within us, that soul, but we need to remove those protective layers. Sometimes we need support in order to do that. Otherwise, it's a coping mechanism, so we don't get rid of them easily, these addictions or whatever we have. And the other thing we need to do is to keep nourishing that soul so that it can kind of melt away these clouds, melt away the coverings on our own. And then that is what we do. So that is what I'm teaching in all my books, how to nourish our hungry souls. And what I learned really so much from Rav Noach Weinberg of Aish Torah is that through gratitude is the main ingredient in nourishing our hungry souls.
Well, you put in a lot of Jewish themes as well in your books. So how do you feel as a Jewish writer now? How do you feel about a Jewish writer's place within the writing community right now?
Do you mean because of the anti-Semitism being
Yes.
so out there now?
Yeah.
It's more important than ever for us to shine our light and show what we have to give, why it's important to be Jewish. That was the question I asked my parents when they were like, why are you going out with so many non-Jews? I was like, you taught me to love everybody. Why? Why do I need to be Jewish? I don't get the point of this. It wasn't until I began to study my heritage and see the wisdom that I saw how valuable it was, because I was ready to toss it. Like, I was the most rebellious one. I don't need any of this. There's no reason for this. Why? So once I got to learn about how amazing the wisdom is, then that's what I want to show to the world. So I give many presentations to non-Jewish audiences as well, and they love learning about this, and people are just not aware of the richness of Judaism and all that we have to give.
So going back a little bit, you mentioned about the Big Brother, Big Sister program. You were the executive director, correct? So
well, I was called the coordinator of the program. Yeah.
How did you get involved in that? And can you just tell me about the organization itself and what it does?
Yeah. I was working when really I worked from home until my youngest was 6 years old. And when he was going to school full time, I said, now I'm going to go back to school, get another degree, or find an interesting job. So I saw an ad to be the activity director of a big senior residence. Mm-hmm. I said, I think I could do that. So that's what I did. And I loved it for 4 years. And then I saw an ad for that they're looking for someone to head this program. And the reason that they're starting it now is like, it's not only going to be for single parent families, they're expanding it to also teens that have gone off the derech in the Jewish community. I'm like, whoa, yes, I worked so hard to become Orthodox, to follow the Torah's guidelines. I think I'm the right person for that job. I got to do that. So I switched and I applied for that job, and I became the coordinator of the Jewish Big Brother, Big Sister program.
So what do they do? What are their responsibilities? Can you just tell me about the organization itself?
Yeah, well, what we were doing was it actually doesn't exist anymore. I retired when I retired, but I retired during the pandemic, which kind of put an end to this program. But there are other
You're retiring from
mentoring
the
programs.
program?
Not really, because it happened during the pandemic.
Okay.
There was no way to continue the program of children getting together with their bigs, with their
Right.
mentors. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of died at that time. But for 20 years, like about 20 years, I did it. And we would screen volunteers that were interested in meeting with the children who needed and wanted a mentor in their lives.
Mm.
And actually, that's how I learned so much about abuse and how to screen for it. I read so much literature on the subject and attended so many workshops on it, because you had to be a real expert to screen out people that would want to do this for nefarious reasons. So, yeah.
So you're about to move to Israel, okay, very soon. So what prompted that decision? What prompted your decision to move?
Well, my husband, I met my husband in Israel, and we both wanted to live in Israel. And we got married there, and I was there for 10 years. We were there for about 10 years. We started a wonderful yishuv in Gush Etzion, and we came back to visit my parents one summer with the car parked at the airport, and we never went back. So basically, my parents weren't well. We ended up staying, and we ended up staying 30 years, more than 30 years here in America. And we actually stayed until the last of our parents was alive. When my husband's father passed away, we finally began to return back to Israel. So we now have been doing that, and we're still in the process of transitioning to living back in Israel again. Thank God.
My daughter's there now, actually, for the year. So going to that, you're moving to Israel. When October 7th happened, how did you find out, first of all, and what was your initial reaction?
Oh, I had no idea what was happening, as most people. I I'd never been in Israel during a war, so when these sirens started, I thought that a car alarm was broke. No big deal. There's just a car alarm that's broke on Simchas Torah here. So, and it just doesn't stop until I began to understand that that wasn't what was happening, and it just kept going. And my husband was in shul at the time, and it was little by little. I began to understand what was happening. Our children live above us and grandchildren, and it was a very frightening day. And of course, we too did not understand the full extent of what happened until Motzi Shabbos, until Shabbos was over, and until Yontif was over that day. And so we only found out really what happened. In the middle of the day, we began to hear from certain security personnel, and people were picked up to join the army on the block. Cars were coming and taking people, but we didn't fully know what was happening. It was a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to, you touched upon briefly your food addiction and the disorder, and a little bit, can you say how you overcame it and your journey a little bit?
Yes, thank you. You're asking wonderful questions, all wonderful questions, really. So I consider it that the basis of addictions, really of all addictions, is a spiritual emptiness, a genuine hunger that needs to be filled. And people try to fill it with externalities. The more desperately we try to fill it with externalities, the deeper the hole gets. That's how addictions keep growing, because the addiction gets bigger and bigger, and the hole is getting deeper and deeper. So basically, food what are we all craving? Lasting pleasure. We all want lasting pleasure. And that's really what parents want for their children. They want their children to have the most pleasurable life possible. What brings the greatest pleasure in life? The Ramchal teaches the greatest pleasure is spiritual pleasure. So if we don't even know that we're souls and we think that we're just bodies, we'll never be able to really get that fulfillment. Once we recognize that we're souls and we recognize we need spiritual fulfillment. Once I began learning about the wisdom of Judaism, then I recognize, yes, it's my soul that's been hungry all these years. Now I get how to fill it. And Rav Noach Weinberg, he taught about the pleasure ladder, which resonated with me so deeply. This is actually, there's a chart that's filled in on my website that people can download about the 5 levels of the pleasure ladder. That it's a free download, which I recommend for people to put on their fridge or their cabinet to remind themselves whenever you feel a scarcity of pleasure in your life, to recognize there's truly an abundance, an infinite amount of ways that you can bring pleasure into your life at any moment. The reason we overeat is because it brings us immediate pleasure. And if we feel a scarcity of pleasure in our lives, then I better keep stuffing my face. And that's how I'll keep the pleasure lasting. So that was the problem. My food addiction was fluctuating between uncontrollable binges, way overeating, and then I would do really restrictive dieting, alternating one or the other, so nobody could even tell by looking at me how I was suffering, because I wasn't like emaciated and I wasn't obese. No, it was one or the other, which I just learned recently is like the most common addiction there is of food addictions, of people doing that kind of fluctuation, living, and it's really a prison. And the walls get narrower and narrower as the addiction takes over your life, takes over your energy, your mind, your emotions, so that it becomes your whole world. So what happened to me is this taught me so much. And that's why I wrote the book. It's like a psychological mystery, because people would say to me, well, like, wow, you never dealt with your eating disorder behavior, your addictions, you just took on being orthodox. And so I went through this search. What I found was that's what it was. Why did one thing heal the other? What did one thing have to do with the other? And it was like a psychological mystery, because at the end of the book, I come to the epiphany through putting the book together of why it made sense, because this is what filled my hungry soul. And it's what can fill universally every soul, Jews and non-Jews, whatever they need to fill up spiritually. But what it really is gratitude. That is what it all comes down to, and that's the essence of Judaism. So,
what leads to it? Is it from a depression aspect? What leads to it to begin with?
The addictions?
Yeah, to that one in particular.
What leads to the addictions is the lack of fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And I felt I was so fulfilled here. I'm like a top student at Harvard, going to medical school, loving parents. What was empty about my life? I had everything. It was such a sweet life. Something was missing. I wasn't grateful. I wasn't grateful for all this. I didn't appreciate what parents want pleasure for their children. That's what God wants for us. Really, all that we have to give back to God, God gave us this whole world to give us pleasure. And all we have to do back is give gratitude. And that's what every single mitzvah is about. Giving back gratitude. And and for the non-Jews, the 7 Noahide laws, that's their way of giving back gratitude to to the creator of everything. And that's the whole dance of life.
What advice would you give people who are dealing with this?
With addictions,
Mm-hmm.
fill your life with gratitude from the earth. It begins like this. An orange. Just take a simple thing in life. You have all the fruit are green. They're hidden amongst the leaves, protected for us. And then when they get the most beautiful to look at, they become the most vibrant color. They're calling to us, we're ready. So that's when they're ready for us. And they smell beautiful. They look beautiful. We take off the individual wrapping, and inside is the sweet juiciness that's been waiting for months for us. We experience it, and then we're left with just these tiny seeds. And these seeds can become infinite trees, infinite more oranges. In one tiny orange is packed the most tremendous amount of intelligence and loving kindness for us.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of experience. If we open our eyes, everything in life can become such a gratitude experience. It's practicing gratitude trains the brain to scan for positive patterns. This is what we're here for. This is our purpose, and to shine this light everywhere.
Yeah, that's great. That is good advice. I was on your website, and you give workshops as well. Can you talk about a little bit about the workshops that you give and how people can go about taking them?
Oh, sure. I give all different kinds. Like I go to schools. I explain how the books come to be because people are really interested to hear behind the scenes.
Of course.
And that's a really fun workshop. I give workshops about happiness. I give workshops about teaching happiness skills, how to have a happy home. I give safety workshops, summer safety workshops, and just about, throughout the year. I think those are my favorite ones that I'm doing now. Yeah.
And what are you working on next?
Right now, there's 3 more books that are coming out.
When?
They should be out before Hanukkah,
Okay.
God willing.
Picture
Yeah.
books?
There are 3 picture books coming out, yes. And
Well,
so
do you want to name them so people can be on the lookout?
okay. One of them is The Happiness Box, which is like a kind of a classic book that I wrote years ago that we finally got back from the publisher, and now we're coming out with new illustrations. It was published many years ago. Again, it's teaching major happiness skills to children as early as possible in life. And then another book is, The Things Hashem Does, which shows you that this is a specifically Jewish book for teaching us how we can see Hashem throughout our lives and recognizing that Hashem is involved with every aspect of our life, for children to really be aware of that. The third book, universal book, is The Mother Who Always Said Yes. This book, the title came to me from one of my granddaughters. One day she was saying, but when I become a mother, I'm going to always say yes. I said, wow, that's a great title for a book. Oh my gosh. Let's see what happens if the mother always says yes. It's a riot. The book is great. And I think it makes a message really clear to children with very few words. The pictures mainly say it all in that book. So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I was going to say, the mother who always says yes does not sound familiar to me at all.
Yes.
Well, how can people follow you on social media?
The best thing is the website. Oh, and social media. Okay, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. What did I leave out? Instagram, all those places.
Oh, under Bracha Goetz?
Yeah.
Well, Bracha, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. And I look forward to your books as well.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Well, again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. Again, a very special thanks to Bracha Goetz. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.